Look at somebody and say stretch. Look at somebody else and say stretch. Can I get a volunteer? Real quick, one volunteer. Come here. Now this man with the withered hand, bow this hand up. This hand had been withered all his life. All his life, this hand has been withered. All his life he'd heard, you can't do nothing. You'll never be nothing. You ain't gonna never know that you're gonna be just like your daddy. You're gonna be just like your mama. All of our lives we've heard generational curses spoken upon us. But today I'm here to encourage you to stretch. Stretch it out. I'm here to tell you to stretch. Let me get another volunteer. Stay right there. Come on, you're in. Bow this leg up. This leg, some of us haven't walked with Christ because we've never seen nobody walk with Christ right. So we're going to stand in one spot all our lives and keep using our excuses. I've never seen God. I've never seen true love. God died for you, true love. So that excuse is null and void. Look at somebody and say stretch. Let me get one more volunteer. Come on, you. She got that right arm out here. Give me this left one. Ball the arm out. You never reach for things. You never press towards the mark of the high calling because your faith is so balled up. Look at somebody and say stretch. Now some of you parents, y'all may be seated. Some of you parents have dreams for your children that they can't even imagine. Now, any good parent will want their child to grow up and do better than them. Some parents say, okay, I'm going to go work this 9 to 5 because I got a family and I got to take care of this, but I want better for them. So I'm going to push them to more. I'm not going to let them settle for the same excuses I gave. Can I get a witness? Is there any parent in here with the testimony that I want my child to do better? Is there any parent, is there any child in here that say, I want better? Are there any children? Well, I guess not. Are there any children that want better for yourself? If you want better, stand up on your feet real quick. Stand up on your feet real quick. And I'm going to invite you to play this game that we played as a child. And if you're young at heart, stand please. It's not just for the young people because some of the older ones are balled up. Some of you, God ain't through with you yet. Look at your neighbor and say, God ain't through with you yet. Say stretch. Look at somebody and say stretch. Now I got to talking about Jesus holding himself up on the cross, and he had to stretch and pull himself up. And can you imagine him at his last breathing point, at his last, before he said, God, I give it to you. Can you imagine him pulling himself up? Can I get a little music? Can you imagine him pulling himself up and stretching? Now, some of you have withered hands because you won't touch anything that God tells you to. Some of you are just like Jonah and want to run from what God sent you to. But look at somebody and say, stretch. Now, for those of you who need healing in your hands, for those of you who God has told you to stretch out, for those of you who God has told to build your ministry, for those of you who God has told that you can do better in school, that D's and B's won't make it, that I can make all A's. Can I get the witnesses up in the front row? Are there any college students that believe that I can do better? Now, all my right-handed people, take your right hand and put your right hand in. Now, take your right hand out. Now, put your right hand in and shake it all about. Now, give God a praise. Now, give God a praise. Y'all still ain't got it. Wait. That praise is too small now. If you're expecting something small, I expect you to whisper to God. I expect you to whisper and say, okay, thank you, Lord. I praise you. And while I'm up here for this youth day, some of us young people need to lose our images. Because our images have gotten us nowhere. And we get in church and we're going to ball our stuff up to whoever we're sitting next to. And we say, we're not going to do it. I ain't going to clap because she ain't clapping. I ain't going to stand up because he ain't standing up. I ain't going to say amen because he's talking about me. But look at somebody and say, stretch. Now for those of you who God is going to take your mind and transform your mind. Now take your head and put it in. Now take your head and put it out. Take your head and put it in and shake it out about. Now give God a praise. But some of us, God has to work on our heart because before you got to God, you allowed some man or some woman to break your heart. You allowed your friends to break your heart and people to walk away. When you should have been turning to God the whole time. You've taken yourself and you balled your heart up and your heart is all torn up. And you say, I don't know how to love people. I don't know how to truly love God because I've been through all of this stuff. We say, I don't know how to love God. I don't know how to love people because my heart is balled up. But if you just lift your hands, anybody who needs God to work on your heart and spiritually take your hand and take your heart and put it in. And take your heart and bring it out. Take your heart and put it in. Now check yourself all about. Now you got to give God a praise. Our problem is with stretching, and this is, as I go to my seat, as I get ready to close, our part with stretching is, the old people used to sing a song that says, put your hand in the hand of the man who still the waters. And they also used to say, hold to God's unchanging hand. And some of us never really let go. Some of us never really and truly let go because we don't have our hands in God's hand. Some of us won't let go because we like to control everything. And that's a problem with the game stations. We have the control in our hands. We say, okay, I got this. Okay, I got this. I know where I'm going. But is there anybody here willing to put your hand in God's hand? It's time out for the excuses of I didn't know. For the older people who didn't know, now you know. You sit under your pastor and your pastor brings you word after word after word after God gives it to him and he prays for you and he counsels you. He's not just doing it for his help. Look at somebody and say stretch. Look at somebody else and say stretch. It's time for your faith to stretch. It's time for you, for us as young people to get out of what we know. It's time for us to get out of they doing it, what's on the TV. It's time for us to start putting our hands in God's hand. It's time for our bodies, our minds, our faith. It's time for our wills to be torn apart and give it over to Him. Look at somebody and say, stretch. At the end of our scripture text, it says, so he stretched out his hand and it was completely restored. Just as sound as the other. Now is the time for you to be restored. Completely. The part about stretching that us as a modern day church have to get out of our head is that when we come to the altar and we come here over and over again praying to God, okay, Lord, I need you to save me. Lord, I need you to fix these things. The part is that we never have really stretched. We come to the altar as a formality. We come to the altar because it's open. Because our friend went, but some places your friend